We're back. This is part 3 of 3. It's the final part. And, oh, Trev, turn around. That is just rude. So we're on to topic 1.4.
Wayne, I think I might be a bit overweight. I don't know how to tell.
Well, you're lucky in part 3. This is what we go over, so you might be able to learn some stuff. That isn't fat. That's Marcus Barcus. Get him out of there. Woof! Bloody biology dog. But enough about our audience.
Yeah, so as Wayne said, part 3 of 1.4, so we'll do the summary at the end of this video.
Remembering, we're one step ahead, so in the book it's 1.3, or it says it is, we're on 1.4.
Absolutely. So, how do you get overweight?
Well, it's all to do with energy, and different people need different amounts of energy before we go on. You need to appreciate that.
Yeah, this is to do with something called BMR.
Basal metabolic rate.
This can be affected by a few things, say if you're a lot taller, if you do lots of exercise, or you're in a really cold climate, you use more energy.
Yes, and the BMR is the minimal energy you require.
Yeah, so to be healthy you want the energy you use to be the same as the energy you take in. So if we make a scale,
We'll represent energy with pens.
So here, this is a healthy person. You have the same amount of energy going in as you use.
So and that's healthy.
And that's what you want. So not much is stored, but yeah.
I'll give you one of these, Triv.
Alright,
so... I've only got one going out.
Yeah, so you use less. So...
That's what forms obesity, when you put in energy but don't use it all.
This causes weight gain. It turns to fat.
It turns to fat, which we did mention in part 2.
Yeah. But...
If I lose one of these...
If you lose one of these and go the other way, you start losing weight, and this can cause problems like starvation.
Yes. So, now that we know about the whole energy balance, how would you determine if you are obese?
Well, there's a few different methods, Wayne. The first one we go on to, which is BMI, which you hit from GCSE. So,
BMI.
if we use me as an example, and the equation for it is mass over height squared. You remember the height squared is something people often forget. So use me. I weigh 60 kilograms, and I'm about 1 meter 6?
1.6.
1.6. So, and that's squared. Now if we do that, that's about 23.
That's about 23, isn't it?
Yeah.
And according to tables, because when you've got this value, there's then tables, and according to the table, that's normal.
That's normal.
Less than 20 is underweight, and so on.
Yeah, more than, I think it's 24.7. Something like that.
And greater than 40 is severe obesity, which is where it becomes a bit more life-threatening.
But it's not a very good scale.
For example, this takes sort of an average person this is based on. So if you're really tall, your height squared is going to be a big number. That's going to make this number quite small.
So let's say you're underweight or anorexia.
Which isn't true.
It might not be true. If you're, say, like a rugby player, so not incredibly tall but quite strong, quite heavy.
That bit number's big, that number's about average.
And it'll say you're overweight.
Which you're probably not if you're a rugby player.
No. So we use something else.
The waist to hip ratio.
This is when you measure around your waist, measure around your hip, and you compare the ratio.
And this is much better because it directly shows how much fat you've gained around your stomach area, which tends to be, which is most related to obesity.
Yeah, what the problem is.
And that's a direct comparison.
It is, which is
that's
a
pretty
lot
good.
better. Yeah.
But you need to know both of these things. You need to appreciate them.
You do?
What problems can obesity cause, Triv?
Well, we went on this a bit earlier. It can cause atherosclerosis and atheromas. High numbers of saturated fat, more cholesterol. It's not good.
Yes, so we'll actually go straight on to cholesterol now because that's what causes diabetes, which is very, very common with these sorts of problems. So let's go on to cholesterol right now.
Let's crack on. Cholesterol. So why is it such a problem?
Well, we need it, so we have lots of it. But if you have too much, it leads to an increased risk of coronary heart disease, CHD.
And studies have shown this. What is it that causes cholesterol to do this?
Well, first you need to understand that, like all lipids, it's insoluble, so to move around the bloodstream it has to bind to things.
Yes, it binds to proteins. These are called lipoproteins because they bind to fats, lipids. And there's two different types of these. There is LDLs, which are low density lipoproteins, and high density lipoproteins. Often people are talking about cholesterol, they refer to this as bad cholesterol and this as good.
Yes.
So I need to know a few things about it as to why.
So firstly, we need to know, what is an LDL made of?
Yeah, so it's made of a saturated fat, it's an important thing, and a protein, and then the cholesterol it's carrying about.
So what is a saturated fat? Just remind me.
Oh yeah, earlier, you mentioned saturated fats have no double bonds. And that's what it is, it's fat with no double bonds.
So the fact that it doesn't have any double bonds is actually one of the first problems. It binds to the LDL receptors that would remove these LDLs.
Yeah, because they travel around and they take the cholesterol to places, and when they get it to somewhere, the saturated fats, because they're insoluble at room temperature, they just deposit it. They just sit there.
And that means the LDL receptors can't remove the LDLs, and that's said to increase cholesterol levels.
It is, and that's quite bad because that can cause the beginning steps of an atheroma.
Because when there's an increased number of cholesterol in the blood, these low density protein parts, they bond to cell membrane receptors. That increases the cholesterol level further and forms what in relation to an atherosclerosis, Triv?
Well, an atheroma, Wayne,
An atheroma.
which is the first step onto atherosclerosis, as Wayne just said.
So that's positive feedback before the positive feedback of the atherosclerosis.
Yeah, there's lots of positive feedback in things like this, really.
So high cholesterol is an issue if there's LDLs. Thankfully,
We have a hero in our story, and these are high-density lipoproteins. So unlike LDLs, they have unsaturated fats, which are important later on, and again, the protein and the cholesterol.
so P plus C, because these are exactly the same, we're just going to be lazy.
Yeah, why not? So, why is the unsaturated fat helpful, Wayne?
Well, there's two different main reasons. First, monounsaturated fats.
Yeah, you get unsaturated fats in different forms, because you can have different numbers of double bonds. Different numbers do different things. So monounsaturated fats do one good thing, and that's they help the removal of LDLs in the blood.
They directly take it away.
Yeah.
So remove LDLs is what they do. And these only have one double
Yeah.
bond.
So what happens if there's loads of double bonds, Wayne?
Well, lots of you should refer to as polyunsaturated. I'm just going to put P-U-F, puff. Polyunsaturated fats. They actually, we mentioned that these saturated fats can damage the LDL receptors.
Yeah, they make deposits.
Polyunsaturated fats fix that. They increase LDL receptors activity.
Yeah.
So increase LDL receptors. So I'm going to put.
By removing the saturated fats that are there.
Yep.
Biology's made up quite a lot of words, I've noticed by now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in relation to atherosclerosis, you should remember from atherosclerosis, eventually you'll get a plaque forming.
Yeah, and this basically makes positive feedback disappear with the plaque. It does things that help remove the plaque, creating negative feedback, which is what you want really. You want it to be back where it was to start with, which is what negative feedback means.
Removes plaque.
That's pretty handy.
And that's all cholesterol.
Yeah.
This is all new stuff above GCSE, so quite scary.
Yeah. Big words. Yeah, just spell them again, so that's another marking point in biology.
Yes, as always.
Yeah.
So
And
now we go on to risks, I think.
yeah, risks associated with all of this jazz.
Yeah, so let's go get cookies.
Cookies. Risk factors. Why stuff's bad?
There's a lot of different things that can affect you in different ways.
There is loads. So we're going to start with smoking.
Smoking's quite a big thing. Most people
Yeah.
know it's bad. You need to understand exactly why it's bad now.
Yeah, so it produces a lot of things which aren't good, like carbon monoxide.
This binds to your hemoglobin, which is red blood cells.
So less oxygen be carried, and that can lead to strokes.
Yes, very, very particularly serious in the brain, but it can starve any cells.
Yeah, of
And
oxygen, which is bad.
Worse, once the carbon monoxide is in your body, you can't get rid of it.
Until-
That's that cell gone.
Until that red blood cell's gone, it stays there forever.
So you have to reproduce more, and if you smoke a lot, you can't reproduce.
Yeah, I don't reproduce
because you don't have
anymore,
enough
so that's not good. Also, there's lots of things that in the cigarette, lots of chemicals. A well-known one.
Nicotine. Most people think, well, it's true, but nicotine is what gets you addicted to cigarettes, and that is true.
It is true.
It
but
has
it's
other
also-
effects.
Yeah, it's a stimulant for adrenaline specifically.
And Adrenaline's good for some sports. It's good to give you a burst of energy.
And that's what it is.
It does stuff. You don't have to know. But it does stuff.
Makes
that
your heart
opens
beat a
up
lot
your heart
faster.
to make it go much, much quicker. But that happens for prolonged time.
The energy just sitting around just high blood pressure when it's not needed.
Which is very, very dangerous because arteries are already under high pressure.
So they can damage them.
And that's what triggers atherosclerosis, in fact.
It is bad. And then they have other chemicals which can damage endothelium and stuff.
And they can remove HDLs directly.
Yeah.
All sorts of negative things from smoking, and that's undisputed, unfortunately. So don't smoke.
Don't do it, guys. That's you told. Right, inactivity.
Yes. It's been proven, there's some debate for some reason, but it's been proven that if you exercise, your HDL's level increase.
Yeah.
You've got at less risk of having these CHDs.
And everyone knows that exercising is healthy because it uses up energy. And with our energy balance thing, if you don't use any energy, you're going to put on weight. And that's going to lead to bad things.
That's very bad. And then there's hereditary.
Yeah, you can just be more likely to get it because of your genetic information.
If people in your family have had it, you are, unfortunately, at greater risk.
Yeah. You don't have to know too much about that. You might know a bit about Punnett squared. You do a lot of those later on.
In topic 2 with cystic fibrosis, so we'll see you there.
Yeah, so salt.
Salt is a problem for the kidneys. Why is it a problem there, Trev?
Well, it makes the water not be able to move out, so all the water retains in the kidneys, and, well, that's not good.
That's not very good at all. And finally, stress.
Yeah, well, your blood really boils, it means your heart's beating a lot, so high blood pressure.
Again, much like the nicotine increasing adrenaline.
It does a similar thing.
effect.
But not everything's bad.
We have something called antioxidants.
Well, they're really swish. They do something called removing radicals. But why are radicals bad, Wayne?
Well, radicals are things with unpaired electrons. And if you do chemistry, you sort of think, well, that's got an unpaired electron, that's got an unpaired electron, they react. But sometimes they don't, and that's a real problem. Antioxidants get rid of these radicals, but why are radicals bad? What can they do in the body?
Well, Wayne, they can actually damage proteins, and I'm going to talk about enzymes, but all proteins, they can damage quite a lot. And they can damage DNA, and that can cause tumours, cancer.
Yeah, which is obviously a massive issue, a very serious thing.
So you want to get rid of these?
Yes.
There's quite a few things that do get rid of them.
Yes, there's vitamin C, which is in orange juice. Most fruits, in fact, will contain the correct antioxidants, which is where we get our 5 a day from.
Yeah, it's healthy to have fruit and exercise anyway, but the main point is antioxidants and all the vitamins inside, vitamin E, all that jazz.
And a rather surprising one, in fact, is alcohol.
Yeah.
It's a big...
Specifically red wine.
Dispute. Yeah. Alcohol is bad. If you have too much alcohol, you are at greater risk of a lot of things. In fact. It's not just CHD, there's other things as well. Cancers and stuff, unfortunately.
But it can help.
Yes.
The French are famous for having a glass of red wine with each meal.
Yeah, it's culture there.
Yeah, and the moderate drinking of this is, well, it's healthy. The antioxidants constant flow.
Because there is antioxidants in red wine, and that does reduce your radicals.
So it is good.
Yes. Damn the French and their moderate drinking of red wine.
Ah. And that's all the risk factors.
Yes, so now let's go on to sum up. We're going to sum up part 1, 2 and 3 right now.
Let's do it.
So,
yeah, summary time.
Yeah, topic 1.4, part 1, 2 and 3.
All in this clip, it was quite a
Big thing, yeah.
Yeah, so what we start off with,
Well, we started off with risk, Triv, if you remember. We spoke about... Well, we didn't touch on most of it, 'cause it's just a
yeah, some of it talks about cohort studies and stuff, but anything you really need to know about that bit is reliability and validity.
Reliability is repeats, validity is...
fair testing.
Oh, there you go, and that's just a big read.
Yeah, we'd have just copied what they said, so just read it.
We then spoke about the lymphatic vessels with the oedema of
the build-up of fluid in tissue fluid and how it's removed, and thoracic duct and all that jazz.
And that concluded part 1.
It did. It's quite a small part in comparison to the other two. So the second one, all about sugars.
Yes, or as we now call them saccharides. We have mono, then di, then poly.
Yeah, mono being 1, and we use example of glucose, and di the bonds, 1, 4.
Condensation reactions.
Yeah, hydrolysis. That's good. Good noise.
And then the
Branch.
polysaccharides you need to know: starch, cellulose, and glycogen. Starch and glycogen very similar.
Yeah, starch made up of amylose and amylopectin. Amylopectin is branched, so 1 to 6 as well.
Yep. And glycogen is just it.
Yeah, it's just a big structure, more little spirals, insoluble, all that jazz.
And cellulose you touch on a topic.
Interesting fact about sugar.
Did you know sugar was referred to as white gold for many years and was considered a luxury until the 1700s?
Well, there you go.
Knowledge is power.
And power corrupts, so study hard and be evil. So,
Interesting.
on to the moment of lipids.
We did, and we spoke about lipids supplying twice as much energy and
Yeah, but why you can't have loads of them because they produce lots of fat.
the energy balance.
Oh.
There we had the BMR being to do with the energy balance, and we had BMI and waist to hip ratio. Which one's better?
The waist to hip ratio. This BMI doesn't take into account strong people or tall people.
Or indeed small and weak people in the opposite way.
Yeah. There you go.
What was next?
Risk
We then went on to
factors.
cholesterol.
Oh, yes. And the LDLs and HDLs.
Which one's good out of those?
Well, HDLs are the saviour.
Yep.
They don't block the receptors, that stuff. They do like questions on that quite a lot.
We do. Oh, quite a lot indeed.
Yeah.
And then there was the risk factors, so smoking, inactivity,
Salt.
hereditary,
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah, and alcohol to a degree, but it was helpful because of the antioxidants, so they're good.
Yep.
They remove radicals, which are bad.
And that was that really.
That was that. That was all of 1.4.
We'll see you at 1.5.
Yeah, and that's the
Remembering
last
we're
one.
dividing it up differently. So
Yeah.
1.4 in the book is
So-
1.5 to us.
Yep, and this is the last one. So, he's been Wayne Lack.
And he's with James Trevette. Stop smoking.
Bad.